Agaloth has traveled far to reach the old ruins of Nevzarov. Rumors of ancient riches and power have crossed the Necromancer's ear, yet what intrigues him the most are the whispers of the undead. Apparently, they have called these ruins home, and even more intriguing, they have called Agaloth to join them. Well, hello there folks, and welcome to Dice Chatter. Frostgrave Season 2 is rolling along, and we will finally begin the story of Agoloth the Doomwhisperer. Before we get into the game, we will cover the wizards, their spells, the warband they have hired, the scenario, and any other pre-game shenanigans. So without further ado, let's dive in. Agoloth the Doomwhisperer is secretive and deceptive, but does accept help from those who are like-minded. His apprentice, Jim, will do for the time being. The Necromancy School of Magic is Agaloth's specialty, and with these skills, he plans to bolster his warband and himself with spells like Raise Zombie and Steal Health. And don't forget about the few spells he can cast before each battle as well. Brewing some potions and revealing secrets about the acquired treasures can be most advantageous. For Agaloth's warband, we have a Dark Templar, a Tracker, an Apothecary, and a number of thieves and thugs to round out the 10-fighter list. Moving on over to the scenario we are playing today. Just like our first episode, we will be creating our own solo adventure for Agaloth. This scenario is called Whispers of the Dead. Check the description for the listed rules, but if you are too lazy to read, the adventure rules are as follows. Set up the board to resemble a ruined graveyard. In the center of the board will be the central treasure and 2 other standard treasures. They are located here on the table. Place the Ghoul King leader next to the central treasure as well as 4 other ghoul allies. At the end of every round, 2 skeletons will emerge on a randomly determined side of the table. This will create a time crunch for Agaloth and his warband. Get the treasure and get out before getting overrun. If the Ghoul King is defeated, Agaloth will gain an additional 25 experience points, and similar to the last scenario, the Ghoul King, despite being a warband with a bunch of creatures, still rolls for initiative. If they win, the warband can activate a few models before Agaloth has the chance to act. So before we start this game, we do have 3 pre-game rolls for both Agaloth and his apprentice Jim. The first spell they will cast is Raise Zombie, and after 1 roll, a zombie will join Agaloth's warband. I'm sure this little guy will get some needed work done. The next spell to be cast is Brew Potion. Agaloth and Jim both roll to see if they can make a potion of strength, and Jim manages to create the elixir, which will be given to the Templar. And for the final spell, the magic casters will attempt Reveal Secret. Both need a very high roll on the die here, but they are unsuccessful. This will lead things into turn 1 initiative. Agaloth will be the purple die, while the Ghoul King and his minions will be the green. And it looks like the undead monstrosities will be going first. The Ghoul King and 3 of its allies get to activate and double move first. These undead creatures have only one motivation: to feast on the flesh of Agaloth and his warband. They all will simply move up the battlefield and get closer to the mortals. After this, things turn on over to Agaloth's wizard phase. The Necromancer will start things off by casting Bones of the Earth onto the Ghoul King. The spell is successful on a 10, and the undead ghoul is now held down in place by a series of skeletal hands. Agaloth will finish his turn by moving up near the dead tree next to the dilapidated road. This will move things over to the Tracker, who will knock an arrow into his bow and fire a shot into the nearby ghoul. We have a +2 shot to the ghoul's +2 defense, and the arrow finds its mark, piercing 6 damage into the undead minion. To finish things up, the Tracker will move on over near Agaloth to hopefully move into the ruined home next turn for a good vantage point. The Templar will activate next and just double move up to the ghoul that was damaged by the arrow from his brothers in arms. And for the final activation of the wizard phase, this thief will charge up the table, getting himself closer to the treasure that is waiting to be snagged by his sneaky little hands. Things now move on over to the apprentice phase. Near Jim, we have 2 thieves and an apothecary. Both of the thieves will double move up the board, heading for the treasure on the gravestone. Both the apothecary and Jim will stick together and head up the left side, hugging this large stone outcrop along the way. Jim will then use his second action to cast Leap on the orange thief past the Ghoul King. The spell is successful on a 12, and the thief is propelled way up right next to the central treasure. What a play by Jim and the Warband. This last spell will end the apprentice phase, and things will move on over to the soldier phase. For this final phase of the battle round, the few models that have yet to act will make their way up the board. The zombie under Agaloth's employ will charge up and get close enough to its creator and sit there until next turn. And the two final thugs will move up and get into base contact with a ghoul, and the other will get near Jim for some extra apprentice protection. Once all of these moves are complete, we pop on over to the creature phase where one ghoul needs to move. This undead monster carrying a massive leg bone will double move up and get into combat range of the thief, hoping to deal out some damage next turn. After this, we end Battle Round 1. Now don't forget, with each round's conclusion, 2 skeletons show up on the table, and after some determining rolls, a single skeleton will emerge on the eastern and western sides of Agaloth's starting position. Once these undead monsters are in place, we will now roll for some turn 2 initiative. And by the looks of it, the ghouls get a chance to do some damage to Agaloth. The Ghoul King will have his ally next to him attempt to attack the skeletal bones holding him in place. We have a +2 fight to the bones, +0. And the Ghoul King is now free to advance on the mortals. Him and his ghoul pal will move to the closest enemy, which is the helpless thug. The king will take out his great cleaver and swing it down into the thug. We have a +6 fight to the thug's +2, and the great axe just glances off the thug's leather tunic, slamming into the earth beneath, dealing no damage. The ghoul in combat with the thief near the central treasure will go next and attack the human. Swinging his massive bone, we have a +2 fight to the thief's +1, and the mortal flesh bag takes 3 damage from the attack. One more activation for the Ghoul King, and the ghoul in this unfriendly combat will attack the thug holding a big sack. A +2 to a +4 this time, and no damage is dealt to either combatant. We now move this over to the wizard phase, where the tracker near Agaloth will go first. He will take his first turn climbing up to get to the top of this ruined home, and then fire an arrow at the ghoul by his lonesome. We have a +1 against another +2, and boom, with that natural 20, the ghoul is one-shotted and the undead fiend is taken down. Nice shot. The Templar will go next. He will chug down the potion of strength that was given to him at the beginning of the game, and then attack into the unsuspecting ghoul. We have a +7 fight to the ghoul's +2, and 5 more damage hits the already beaten and bruised ghoul, taking the creature out. The big fighter will then take its second action, moving up the board towards the treasures. The zombie will go next and follow the lead of the Templar, just double moving up the board towards the treasures. Of course, we can't end the wizard phase without Agoloth. We will move up closer to the zombie and then cast Leap onto the Templar. The spell is successful on a 10, but a 7 is rolled. The wizard will decide to empower the spell, taking 3 damage to push the warrior up near the combat on the funeral pyre. This will conclude the wizard phase, moving things over to Jim and those nearby. The apprentice will go first and take a risk and attempt to cast Petrify on the Ghoul King. The spell goes off on a 14, and the die barely moves onto an 18, and the spell is successful. This will trigger a will save from the ghoul, who also needs a 14 on the die, but rolls a 3. This means the Ghoul King receives no activations on its next turn, as well as a -3 to its fight stat. Absolutely brutal. Following this, Jim and the nearby apothecary will move forward towards the treasure. This just leaves one more fighter to activate this apprentice phase, and that would be the thug who is in combat with the Ghoul King and its ghoulish ally. The thug will take a chance with some combat against the king. We have a +2 to the king's +3, and the thug manages to slam in 9 damage to the Ghoul King encased in stone. After this combat, we move on over to the soldier phase. 4 models will activate for Agaloth during this phase, and we will tackle the movements first. The 2 thieves close by to Jim will move forward. One will just nudge up the board closer to the skeleton to create a barrier between himself and his apprentice. Meanwhile, the other thief has just enough movement to get up the board and get right next to the treasure to pick it up. Also, the thug over by Agaloth will double move up the board as well, getting near the scrum at the center of the table. With those moves done, let's tackle the final combat left, right here at the central treasure. The thief here will attempt to knock this ghoul down a peg. We have a +1 fight to the ghoul's +2, and the thief is once again unsuccessful, taking another 3 damage. After this combat, we complete the soldier phase and move on over to the creature phase. The skeletons on the table get to act next. They will both move to the closest target they see on the table. One will move right up to the thief who is playing bodyguard for Jim, while the skeleton on the other side of the table will double move, making his way towards the Templar and the central treasure. So after these moves, we will conclude turn number 2. And once again, more undead skeletons will emerge, this time on the north and south sides of the table. These monstrosities seem to be closing in on Agoloth and his warband, who have yet to even pick up a treasure. Let's turn things right on over to some initiative, where it looks like the ghouls will be going first for the 3rd time this game. The Ghoul King will go first, but remember he has petrified this activation, and this will forego the killing he'd like to enact, but he will simply delegate that to the ghoul right next to him. We have a +4 fight for the ghoul to the thug's +2, and with those rolls, the thug ends up taking 4 damage. This thug definitely needs some support here. Next, the skeleton in combat with the thief will go. We have a +1 fight to the thief's, well, +1 as well. And these undead are many, but they topple with ease. The last activation for the Ghoul King's warband will be the ghoul mercilessly fighting this thief. Once again, we roll the die, a bone mallet swings in, and this time a head is dislodged from its torso, killing the thief on the funeral pyre. Very fitting. Alas, we move on to Agaloth's wizard phase. The zombie will activate first and double move and get into combat range of the encroaching skeleton. It took 3 turns, but that zombie made it halfway up the board. Following this, the thug will use his movement to get to the treasure and then pick up that hunk of gold. Finally, Agaloth can taste some rewards for this excursion. Lastly, Agaloth himself will activate. He will look towards the thug with the treasure and cast Leap. The spell goes off on a 10, and the thug is blasted another 5 inches forward closer to the board's edge. This will then end the wizard phase. To start off the apprentice phase, the nearby apothecary will move forward and get in combat with the thug and the terrifying ghouls. She will then give the thug the healing potion she has on her so that he can drink it before the inevitable battle later this round. After this, Jim will activate and attempt to petrify the Ghoul King once again. The spell goes off on a 14, and this apprentice is successful. But unlike last time, the Ghoul King has enough willpower to push off the spell, rendering it useless. Jim will then head forth and hide in the ruins. The soldier phase is next, and we have a bunch of activations. We will do all the combats first. The tracker will load up an arrow and fire out at the ghoul sitting on the central pyre. We have a +2 on a +2, and once again that tracker has it out for these undead creatures and destroys the monster. Now on over to the thug, who will use its first activation to drink the potion, getting himself back up to full health, and then attack the ghoul right in front of him. Once again, another +2 fight to the ghoul's +2, and it seems this thug cannot get a good lick in, and he ends up taking 6 damage from the hungry undead. The final combat of the round will be the Templar, who will move up to the shambling skeleton and use his second action to attack the bag of bones. A +7 to the skeleton's +1, and he easily dispatches the monster. To finish up the soldier phase, this thief will pick up this treasure and start heading for a board's edge. And the other armless thief will charge forward to the central treasure here and end his turn just below the large stone. With no more activations, we turn things over to the creature phase. Since all of the ghouls that are still alive have acted, we only have 2 skeletons that need to move. One of them will head forward straight to Agaloth himself, while the one on the other end of the board cannot see a single target. It will randomly determine its movement until it sees a target and finish the double move with a thief holding the treasure in sight. After this, we conclude turn number 3. Of course, we add 2 more skeletons to the table, and it turns out they will start once again on the same exact board edges as last time. We'll then roll for some initiative. And hey, would you look at that? With a 2 on the die, Agaloth and his warband finally get to take their actions first this round. We begin turn number 4 with the wizard phase. Agaloth is the only fighter that will act during this phase. Despite the affinity for the undead, he doesn't enjoy the skeleton nearby. The wizard will move up the board and then cast Bones of the Earth on the bag of bones. The spell is successful on a 10, and the skeleton is stuck in place until he can free himself. After this, we hop on over to the apprentice phase. Jim will take his turn and decide to copy his leader. The treasure is most important now, and another skeleton is approaching. He will move forward and then attempt to cast Bones of the Earth as well. The spell goes off on a 12 for Jim, and he terribly fumbles on this one and ends up taking 2 damage with the miscast. Ouch. No more activations in the apprentice phase, so we will start moving all of the soldiers. Let's handle these combats first. The thug we have seen so many times attempt to attack the ghoul gets another chance. We have this time a +4 equal to another +4, and the thug manages to pierce into the ghoul's leathery skin, dealing 6 damage. Of course, the apothecary wants to get into the mix. She will attack the ghoul king himself. We have a +3 to the king's +6, and no damage is dealt from this combat. Now the tracker, who has been on a killing spree, and he is hoping to add more to his tally. He will risk firing an arrow into this group of fighters. After rolling off screen to determine the target, the Ghoul King will be the one on the defense, step 1 down. The tracker will then pull out another arrow from his quiver and fire it at the unsuspecting king. We have a +2 shot to the Ghoul King's +4 defense, and this tracker needs a raise because that is another natural 20, and another huge kill on the board. The Ghoul King has fallen. The few undead left on the table see their leader fall, and as they hesitate just for a moment, Agaloth and Jim take advantage. This gives them enough time to cast invisibility on a number of fighters to conceal them as they leave the undead ruins behind. It was a close one as the undead closed in, but Agaloth and his warband held together and they escaped with their lives. During the battle, 1 thief perished to the undead, but Agaloth expects to recruit another member to his warband soon enough. Whispers were heard on Agaloth's first mission. He is able to boost up his total hit points and make Bones of the Earth easier to cast. As they leave the Nezarov ruins, the warband travels to their home base, a secret crypt only known to Agaloth. They open their treasure here and discover the following riches. A total of 270 gold crowns, which they will spend 50 of those on the base upgrade carrier pigeons. A bow of +1 shot, very fit for the already impressive tracker, and a grimoire of teleport. Quite the haul for Agaloth and his warband. There you have it, folks, the introduction of Agoloth the Doomwhisperer and his warband. I hope you enjoyed this battle report, and let me know in the comments if this is content you enjoy and would like to see more of in the future. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all the other socials. I want to thank you all for watching, and of course, happy gaming.